Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality, and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before we go into this episode with Noémi, I want to share with you some ways that I can further support you. Firstly, tune into Her Inspirations, the sister podcast to this title, where within each episode I explore a different aspect of our spiritual and creative journeys. Also, if you join the mailing list, you'll receive emails with additional teaching points and resources for you to explore deeper on your personal journey. Also, if you're someone that's always wanted to be heard in the world, whether that means you're launching your own podcast, you're showing up on social media, you're doing more public speaking, or simply being more vocal in your life, I've created Your Awakened Voice for you. This is my course, which uses a holistic approach that acknowledges the intricate connection between your physical body, mind, and spirit. This course empowers you to discover and develop your voice. Or if you're ready for the one-to-one experience and working closer with me, if you know there's a purpose to your life, my purpose is to support you. In particular, I work with women over 40. I'm helping you to trust your intuition, rediscover your innate creativity, and use your decades of wisdom to design your purposeful life. All of the links to these are in the show notes. My guest this week is Noémi Beres, a self-taught artist from Hungary, who's best known for her unique and witty mixed media hand-sewn collages. She's also the co-owner of Podcast Connections, a service that helps entrepreneurs share their knowledge and grow their businesses through podcast interviews. During our conversation, Noémi shares about her journey as an artist, her inspirations, creative process, and how it has helped her heal and work through grief. She also talks about her entrepreneurial journey, using creativity in business and showing up in the professional world in an authentic way. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
When I make collages, that's when I feel it. When I'm in the zone and I'm totally relaxed, I'm in a completely different world.
Before we go further into our conversation today, Noémi, I just want to give you an opportunity to share about yourself, your journey, and how you got to being the person and the creator that you are today.
Thank you for having me on your show today, Carol. It's such an honor. Yes, I was born and raised in Hungary. I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, obviously, but I was born and raised in Hungary. I think that's an important part in my journey because that's where I came from, and that's really destined who I am to be. All the culture, the language, the history of the country just really determined my life and my path. And I'm by trade, I'm a linguist. I studied Danish and Swedish linguistics at university. I have a master's degree in. I'm far away from that right now, what I'm doing. But I didn't really want to live in my home country, so decided to leave in 2004. And that was a big step in my life. I was only 3, I guess, and just left the country with my husband, and we started a new life in Ireland first. And I very soon realized that I don't want to work for anyone. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I became an entrepreneur in 2007. And since then, I've been working remotely, working for myself, and I really enjoyed it. I never looked back. I had several businesses in my life. First, we had an online travel-related business. Then, thanks to COVID, that disappeared and stopped and collapsed. And so we had to start a new business in 2020. And that was when I started the podcast booking agency journey, which is really exciting, and it's going on now for 4 years. And like, when it's a company's life, 4 years is a big thing because companies usually don't, ever exist, right, more than like 3 years. So that was a big thing. So I'm a podcast booking agent, and but I'm also an artist, and I self-taught artist. I make collages, paper collages, digital collages, and my unique thing is the hand-sewn collages on canvas, which I was like looking for online, but I couldn't really see other crazy people who do the same as me, because it's really hard to sew something on a canvas, because it's like hard work. It's hard on your hands. So that's what I'm doing as I say, in my non-existent free time. And I love creativity since I was born, or since I could do something. I was always like, as a kid, I was drawing, I was painting, knitting, making jewelry, something. Just like I had to be creative during my life. And and I also love music, and I know you do too. You're a singer, and you play beautifully on the piano. And so I love drumming, but it's for me, it's just kind of a passion project. I have a frame drum, I have a hand pan, and I enjoy playing on them. And the tongue drum too, which I bought from my son. It was a bad excuse, I know. It's like, you have to play on this, and then I stole it from him. So I love that too.
Yeah. The hand drum is one of those things that I've been the hand pan, sorry, is one of those things that I just love listening to.
Yeah.
Just the beauty of that, and it's on my list of things to learn. But like, because I listen, I'm trying to just understand it, so I just kind of watch. I'll watch people, I'll watch tutorials, and then it's like, okay, but then which one am I going to get? Because they're tuned so differently, and it's then deciding like, okay, what kind of like what chord do I want? Which one? Which is my frequency? So haven't decided on that yet, but I'm still just immersing myself in other people playing it, because it's such a simple thing, but such a very effective and beautiful thing. And one of the things that I get from listening to that is just healing and soothing, just by listening to that music. And I know that from your point of view as well, you tap into the healing aspect of art. Can you expand on that and how that's informing your work?
First, I discovered this when my dad passed away in 2019 and my grandma passed away in the same year. So I had a lot of grief going on, anxiety, stress, losing my business, then COVID-19 happened. So it was a lot going on. And I needed a safe space to get there, to find peace and quiet. So that was when I just rediscovered making collages, because I always loved, making things, but collages, I started making collages when I was expecting my son in 2012. So that was like a big moment for me. I remember the first collage I made. Then I stopped doing them. And during COVID, I need something. I need something to heal me and need something to calm me. And that was the safe space where I found my peace and my quiet, and I could ground myself. And it was a beautiful feeling. Every evening, I took my collage. I was sitting in bed. Obviously, I can't lie in bed when you make a collage because you're sewing. And I was listening to my favorite music or my favorite audiobook. And I was just, creating these collages right after the other. And I just enjoyed so much the journey of making these collages. It really suited my soul and body. And then I discovered that, this is right. This is amazing. So I can teach other people how to do this. And it gave me a big confidence boost. It's like, maybe I'm not selling my art because I don't want to sell my art, but I would love to teach other people how to relax and how to cope with stress and anxiety thanks to art. So I completed a art therapy course and about art therapy and positive psychology, so kind of a mixed course. And now I'm, spreading the word, telling my story on podcasts and try to help people to to cope with stress, anxiety, because I know there's a lot of people out there who just can't express how they feel, but it's important to do that. And we can't just swipe everything under the carpet, because it's not going to work out. One day the bottle will, the genie in the bottle just open up, and it's going to be bad. So this is a safe space for anyone.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the surprising things that you learnt when you were starting to create, that you maybe didn't even realize that art or your own expression of art could give you, that you were like, oh, because sometimes we just think, oh, I'm going to make something so that I've got something at the end of it, we think about the end goal. But then in the process of creation, there are so many little things that come in that I'd be interested to find out what comes up for you, because I know what mine are, many of mine are as well, but I'd love to hear about, what are the kind of things that come up that you're like, I never thought doing this would give me that.
Sure. First of all, it's kind of a meditation process for me, because you are in the zone. It's like a catharsis. It's like you're purging, you're cleansing. It's like you are in the zone. You don't focus on anything else, just the creation process. And I didn't care about how the art will look like when it's ready. I was just enjoying the journey and this kind of meditative state I was in. I didn't watch the news. I didn't talk about politics or COVID or anything else. I was in my zone, and I just enjoyed it so much. So for me, it's like, wow, this can be like, it's a form of meditation. And I never ever thought that, because back then, I'm doing meditation like every morning for like 2 years. But before then, I didn't do that. And I didn't even know that like creating art can create the same effect on you, like meditating and sitting in quiet and, with your thoughts like for 20 minutes, but it was amazing. And what I also noticed, and I didn't know that back then, that it really helps to cope with grief. I had so much going on back then, and I couldn't really talk about it. The only person I could talk to about it was my mom, but she was also grieving. So it was hard. So I put everything, my soul, my body, everything into those collages, and just tried to express all my emotions that were hidden inside. And it was a healing process, because now I know and I'm feeling much, much better after like 4 years gone, and I'm still creating art. I'm still playing music. It's just so refreshing and amazing how you feel after that. It's like a medicine, but art is medicine for sure. And today, actually, it was so interesting, all these synchronicities in the world, that I'm on Instagram too. And I'm talking about like gratefulness. I'm talking about art, and I love design. And today I came across this quote from a book, which is called The Art of You. And they were talking about like art is a safe place to explore all emotions. No feeling is taboo. It's about being sensitive to what your body is telling you, then using your art to set the emotion free. And that was this morning. And I was just getting ready, like mentally, emotionally, for your interview. And this came up on my Instagram feed. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to share this, because that's what art does. It's an amazing safe place to be.
So good. I'd like tick 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 all of the above, because for me, finding expression in all of those different things, like it started with me playing the piano and writing little songs and like making clothes. Like I was taught how to sew. So I'd make clothes for myself, I'd make clothes for my dolls, I'd make clothes for my friends, like there'd always be some little project on the go. Yeah. And especially looking back now as well, my upbringing had a lot of trauma and had a lot of grief going on from a very, very early age. It was a very unstable environment. But I realized that I found very early on my solace in that space. I wasn't able to speak about all of the things that were going on around me, because everyone, like you say, everyone's dealing with it in their own way, or they're not available to hear you or respond to you in the way that you need at that time. And for me, I found that, and I know 100% that I wouldn't be as kind of clear-headed as I think I am. You know, like, it depends who you speak to. If it wasn't for finding creativity like almost immediately in my life and finding that as an outlet for me to write about things, write songs, write poetry, write, or just sit at the piano and just bang about, you know, and try and work chords out. One of the things that came to me was, especially when I was learning very early on, like learning, you know, to read and to learn the mechanics and the theory of music, was you make a lot of mistakes when you start, you know, like, well, you always make mistakes, but you make a super amount of mistakes. You're trying to get your hands in a certain way, you're trying to get the chords right. But many times when I was trying to like write music, sometimes I'd make a wrong note, you know, like put a wrong note in there. And especially when you're playing a harmonic instrument like the piano, there are so many things going on that you're creating. For me, it felt like almost like the only way that I can describe it right now is like acupressure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're pressing on different meridian points, you know, and you're kind of pressed there, and that'll be like, ooh, 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 you know, so that's how chords would feel to me. So if it felt, you know, there'd be almost like a dissonance and then a release, a dissonance and then a release. But then sometimes I'd make a little mistake that would bring a tension into a certain point that I could kind of play around in the tension for a bit before I released it, you know. And it was, how long are you prepared to kind of play in the tension of something and then release it as well? And that's why I just loved the music, and especially specific genres that played around with sonic tension, you know, like especially jazz, where there's a lot of discordant, you know, and you're just like, oh, it doesn't sound right. And it keeps you in that space for a long time, and then it releases, you know, it's that tension and release and tension and release. And that's why I can't and couldn't and can't and will never get enough of what is available from, you know, playing music, singing, all of those things, and being able to express that. One thing, you know, with the tension and release, when I wanted to know, how did you get to the medium of collage? Of all the ways of expression, why did you choose collage as your particular line of expression?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I actually, when I was younger, like much, much younger, I started to draw and paint, and that was fine. And I really enjoyed that too. But then that was an interesting story in my life. And that was 2012, as I mentioned before, and I was expecting my son. I just sat down. I had this little like table, and I just started to make a collage on a piece of cardboard. And like, something just came to me a little out of nowhere, and like, oh, maybe I was nesting, or I don't know what I was doing there, but it was like a really positive collage. It was like about home, about like, all these nice, like warm colors and nice pictures I put together, and I use these old buttons and stuff like that. So I just glued everything together on this piece of cardboard. I still have that collage because it always reminds me, like, my son was born and everything. And it just came to me. I don't even know why or how or why on earth I started to make collages, because what I love about it, it's like a puzzle that you have so many pieces. And I always loved collecting things. I'm not a hoarder. So I loved collecting things. I like postcards, old photos, and piece of fabrics or old buttons from my grandma's drawer, anything I could get my hands on, because I love vintage things. So when I'm making a collage, it's always about like kind of has a vintage vibe. And I don't know, I just started doing them. I enjoy putting this puzzle together, and then something interesting comes out of it. And especially when I'm sewing now, it's like you're sewing my memories and my family's history and my family's memories together. So it's kind of a diary. My mom told me the other day, because that was during Christmas, a couple of months ago, I visited her, and I made a collage at home, and she told me, it's like, gosh, this looks like just a page from a diary. And it's like, yeah, it looks like actually something from the past. And I'm getting these vibes from the universe, or I don't know from where, I'm just doing them.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things that I always say, if I show up online or if I'm writing or anything like that, is that creativity is spirituality.
Yeah.
It's where is that stuff coming from? Because
Mm.
when I used to sit down and play, like initially when I learned to play the piano, my teacher would go, you go to the shop and these are the books that you buy. So for a long time, I thought that you got music from books that you bought in a shop,
Yeah.
like your young mind, you think about these things until then I started to really play around with stuff and then realize, well, where does that come from? I didn't buy that from a shop, and it's like, hopefully I'm not copying anyone from the radio, and then it's like, oh, so then this is coming from like where, my mind, and you kind of get into this space
Yeah.
and realizing that you're really being fed something that is unique if you allow it to kind of move through you, and that in itself is, I think, is like so magical and so emotional and so special
Mm.
that this is why I always want to encourage people, just find something
Yeah.
to do to get yourself into that space, because it just gives you just a greater appreciation for what you're capable of, and then what the world needs. If everyone had their thing, but then of course people will say, oh, I'm not a creative person,
Yeah, I heard that so
and
many
I've got,
times.
I mean, what do you say to people who say they're not creative?
Everyone is creative. I mean, life is creative. I'm like, so when they tell me that, like, so I just ask the question, like, can you draw, or like, can you scribble, or can you doodle, or can you do anything on a piece of paper? I mean, and like making a collage is not like rocket science. I mean, if you don't have to be an artist to start anything like that, like you grab a piece of paper, you have a couple of magazines ready or anything like printed out online, and you just start putting something together, scissors, glue, that's all you need. And there you go, you made a collage. And obviously, you don't have to be an artist to do anything like that. You don't even have to be creative, or if you think you're not creative, just start doing it. I mean, this comes from inside, and everybody has that kind of vibe and feeling that, like, yes, I can put that on paper. You can knit, you can crochet, you can cook. I mean, cooking is about creativity. It's there's so many things that requires creativity in our life, work, entrepreneurship, anything. It's all about that. So we all have that. We just need to let it out and help ourselves to let it out and get it out there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you a real artist question now as well. So, how do you know when you're onto a good thing? Because we like, as artists, we're always creating, and some things we're like, okay, that was just to get the dust off, and then this is something that's kind of moving towards something that I know that I've kind of hit another level. Like I'm really opening up to
Right.
something new. So how do you know that? How do you get the sense that you're onto something better or good? I don't want to grade it, but you know what I mean. And then how do you know when to stop?
That's a very good and very interesting question. Once you are in the zone and you really feel like, oh my gosh, I just stepped into something. And like one of the collages I made was I just used a couple of magazines, clippings, and books, and I used crayons, and it came out so beautifully and well. And I was like, I was just in awe. It's like, oh my gosh, I did that. This is so cool. And I didn't even realize that. And you just feel it. You just feel it that, yes, I'm on the right track. And yeah, there are other artworks like, yeah, this is cool, but I'm not so proud of it. Or maybe that's just one of them. But I remember perfectly this collage. And it was like a mixed media collage. And I showed it to my husband, I showed it to other people, and they really liked it. And they said, it's like, wow, this is very unique. And like, yeah, that's what I felt, when I made it. And then when to stop. Yeah, sometimes my motto in life is less is more. And I love simplicity. So I don't want to overdo things, but it's hard, especially when you make a collage that like you have that step, like if I add like 3 more pieces, this is going to be crazy. This is too wide. I don't want to do that. So yeah, you really have to figure out when to stop. It's not easy. But most of the time I just feel it because I don't like overload my canvas with like useless things. They all have a meaning and on it. So I think that's important.
And what do you draw from when you're starting a piece? Are you just like, okay, let whatever comes come, or do you work in kind of themes, like you're kind of going through a period of I'm doing this? And also, do you work one piece at a time or multiple pieces at a time?
Yeah, I'll start with your second question. I use one piece I make one piece at a time, especially if it's hand-sewn collage. It's a lot of work, so I just focus on that. I can't really focus on other pieces. Sometimes I make like paper collages because at the same time because it's easier to make, or digital ones because these are the easiest ones. Like if you just use your computer. And the other thing is like, I have so many collage ideas in my head. And so I have a little notebook. So if I have an idea, I have to write it down because I have too many ideas. And then like when I finish one, I go back to my little notebook. It's like, oh, there's another one I was thinking about, but I have to make a note. Otherwise I will forget about it. And then it's like, poof, just, out of my head. And anything can inspire me. Many times just I love old photographs and postcards. I know, I always loved them. Like as a little girl, I was sitting down in my room or like at my parents' house or at my grandparents' house. And I always went through the old photos because we used to have a lot of photos, not like now, it's like everything on the phone. And they were printed out. And I just loved, watching them and getting through them. And I kept these postcards. I was collecting postcards as a little girl and I still have them. And now I started to use them as a centerpiece of my collages, the old photos and old photographs, old postcards. So, and then like I have this like centerpiece, and then I start to build around it. And I have so many things that I keep, and they are very like categorized in boxes and then I take everything out and it's like, okay, so what would fit here? And then again, just comes to me and oh, I should use like a piece of fabric from my old childhood clothing that my mom brought me from Canada when I was 6 years old. It's like, ooh. And these things that I incorporate, like everything, these like little memories from my life, from my own life. So it just comes together. It just comes to me. And I just enjoy that part so much.
And do you have a kind of like goal in mind, like a piece or something that you want to do? Like there's like for me on my bucket list for music is I've always wanted to perform with a live orchestra, like a full orchestra. Yeah. No, that's like one of my creative goals. And so whenever I watch anyone doing that, I'm kind of like in awe, slightly jealous, like there's a mix of one of those things that I see because I know that I'll just be immersed in, there's so much going on in an orchestra. It's kind of like a collage in itself. Like I challenge anyone to listen to like I'm Every Woman by Shaka Khan. Everyone knows that tune is like a big tune, and you kind of tune into the disco part of it. But I'll challenge anyone, like, go back and listen to that tune, get some headphones, ideally some good ones, not just earpods, and just kind of like focus on the strings. Like kind of like let the disco kind of go to the background and like focus on the strings and listen to that tune, but just listen to it with the strings coming forward. It shifts that tune completely.
I will try that.
You have to let me know how that works.
Yes, I will.
I love that one. And years ago I used to live with a friend who had like he like had this vintage Bang & Olufsen stereo set that someone gave him. They were like, oh, I don't want it anymore. I'm like, and he's like, yeah, I'll take it. The sound out of it was impeccable, and it was a vintage one. Like, who knows how much it's worth now? But it was,
Bang & Olufsen is a great brand. Like I know from Scandinavia, so it's like
but this was like a classic one. It had these kind of like curved. Oh, just to think of it, But the thing that was so beautiful about it is I used to play that song so loud. And I apologize to anyone who used to live in that. But I used to sit smack bang in the middle of those two speakers and just listen to that song and be overtaken by the strings, because it's just sometimes you don't realize. I mean, I don't listen to that much modern pop music now, but there are so many layers going on
Yeah.
in these tunes. And like obviously that one, like I
So
said,
true. Yeah.
that one got like, it was in the middle of the disco age, but a lot of disco tunes had a full-on orchestra going on behind them. And if you can like sit and listen to the strings, it's a transcendent tune, you know, it's a different
I
thing.
have to listen to that now.
Yeah, I would say honestly, let me know how it works for you. There's other ones as well that but that one is one that like people know the tune. It really helps if you know the tune and you've kind
Yeah.
of got a set way of like listening to the tune, because everyone like, oh yeah, it's a disco tune. I'm like, it is, but listen to it and focus on the strings.
Mm.
Different tune
Yes.
altogether. Anyway, bringing it back to the question that I was asking you is there anything that you would like to achieve? Is there something on your bucket list of creativity?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we all have that. One of the things I would love to have a solo exhibition. I had group exhibitions before, and I would really love to show my collages to the world, the ones I made and really inspired by my Hungarian heritage, Hungarian culture. So I think it brings a uniqueness to the world, especially because I've been living abroad like 20 years now, but I still keep that in my heart. So I'm Hungarian. I was born and raised there. So I will bring that with me, and I want to show that to the world, maybe in the US, because they all find it unique. You know, when you are from Europe, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, something different, something unique. That's the one thing. And the other thing is that I would love to have a coffee table book based on my collages, like kind of album, and like beautifully photographed. And then I would love to write the story behind each and every collage, how I came up with the idea and what's behind that collage. And because everything has a story, like a podcast interview, we all share our stories, we are open and vulnerable. That's what I want to do in that book. And so people can, go through that book and read the story behind the collages. So that's my other things. I would love to have that one day, but it's a beautifully nicely printed big album. That's my dream.
Beautiful. I love it. And there's nothing more interesting than having a favorite piece of art, whatever the medium, and then finding out the story behind it and the inspiration and the journey and everything like that. That it just kind of adds more, I think, to the process, and also kind of informs you on your own to kind of take notice of your own journey as you're creating as well. That you can put in, because like everything that is in my world has got a story that stems from way back, and putting it and seeing it from it now and going, oh, this is when this started. Even the name of this podcast, Her, that comes from the song that I wrote years ago, and that like there's so many interwoven stories that come from that. But talking of podcasts, a very smooth kind of like straight over, but it's all intertwined, because that's how we met anyway.
Yes, true.
You connect people with podcasts for them to come on as well. But even before we go into talking about the podcast, I like the idea of the fact that we were speaking about this before, of having so many different strings to your bow and not pushing one to the side and deciding that you're just one thing. Like I think within entrepreneurship, especially when you're starting something on your own, like you have to be able to do all of these things, the very creative parts of things, and then the very kind of like left brain, logical, administrative kind of things are all part of the business, and you can make those a little bit creative. But how do you straddle between being that kind of multi-armed, multifaceted creator?
We talked about this before the interview for a couple of minutes. Like, I'm trying to find a middle way, and I'm trying to enjoy best of both worlds, and using my creativity in business the same way I'm using in art. And it was hard, especially at the beginning, because especially when you're on LinkedIn and you want to look like professional, and I'm a podcast booking agent and I have to go to people, and then I can't show my art. I can't really show who I am, because they might think I'm not professional enough or whatever reason. And then I changed my mind. I had kind of like a shift in my mindset. It's like, no, this is me. This is part of me. I can't I can't hide this away from the world because it's still me. I have like 97K followers on Instagram. I love talking about art. I love talking about gratefulness. I love this part. I'm kind of into woo stuff as well. I don't like this expression, but I am. I'm kind of like have this holistic part of myself. And then I have the businesswoman who is running an agency and being an entrepreneur since 2007. And I'm also recently became a walker like in the last couple of years. And I love exercising, not exercising, but like I'm trying to just create a community around get up from your desk and just get walking every day. So walkeveryday.co, that's my website too. And so it's just like, I don't want to sell anything to them. I just want to give them tips. So now here I am, like I'm running a podcast booking agency. I'm creating art. I love drumming. And then I'm, just try to push people out of their rooms and houses. Is like, go for a walk, like 10, 15 minutes every day. It will change your health and change your life. It changed I'm not a fitness expert or anything. I never go to the gym. I just do my walking and weight training at home, but I enjoy that. So you can wear so many hats and you can have these so many personalities and person in one body. And I think that's the beauty of it, because we are not just, as we talked about it, not just black and white. We are so versatile and we have so many things going on in our lives, and we should be proud of it and not hide away from the world. And I ask my friends, so what do you think about my posts on, LinkedIn? Because I'm posting about my photos and like I'm, taking during my walks and a kind of artistic way. And they said, it's like, no, I will love it because that brings authenticity to the table and authenticity to your business, because anyone can be a podcast booking agent. There are lots of us out there, but the one who is doing the walking and a collage artist is probably you're the only one. So that's how you stand out, and people will remember you. And just be proud of it and do it, and accept yourself that you are amazing and you can do different things at the same time.
And I just want to like add a little bit or ask a little bit more on that. What do you think it is about, especially like being on a platform like LinkedIn, which I've had a LinkedIn account for like so long, and I just kind of stayed. I like came in, came out, came in, come out. I'm like, actually, I'm going to go back to it now, but I'm going to be myself, because one of the things that I felt that I didn't align with, just because of where I come from, is that I wasn't like a corporate woman, like I wasn't so kind of like straight-laced and just all about the things, because I felt to play that game, or to kind of fit into what I understood LinkedIn to be. So let me just, keep it open that it's my perception of LinkedIn, which may not be correct. So like my perception of LinkedIn was that it was very straight-laced. It was very corporate. It was very kind of like to the book and to the rules and the regulations and the directives and everything like that. And, again, like we said before, like I can see why people arrive at a certain point and agree with certain things because it looks good and they're good people. But I don't think all of those works, but completely different conversation. But what is it that because I go onto LinkedIn, I'm like, I'm just so not this really, you know what I mean? And there was, I felt very restricted if I was going to kind of play the LinkedIn game as I saw it, because I'm like, I'm just so not that really, like it's not that, and that's not to take away from professionalism, because I do my work to a high standard, which is what I understand professionalism to mean. I deliver on time, I'm courteous and kind and all of the good things as well. But the part of professionalism that I understood that I didn't fit in was this narrow band of what is possible and who you can be. And that's the bit that has always kind of like rubbed up against me, because like yourself, I've known that I'm multiple things, and I've done multiple things over the years, and I've never kind of stayed in one place. I've kind of like, always had like a side thing going on, because it keeps my brain moving, keeps me interesting, keeps me learning, and keeps me expanding. And then I've always been interested in spirituality, which I was like, I don't see any of that. Well, I'm seeing a bit more of it now, because a few people kind of coming out with the woodwork going, oh, me too, I'm a bit woo, on LinkedIn. But because I'm like, maybe this might help, because I feel that there's so much restriction and so much buttoned upness
Yes.
within a platform, within that idea of what's professional, that it doesn't allow people to show who they really are, and I've been to like a few kind of networking events and things like that, and I've met very, they're hitting all the accolades, they know all the people, they do all the stuff, but then they'll come and talk to me about, I'm writing this book actually, I've been doing this, it's like they can only really come and talk about their creativity to me, like the creative one in the,
I think a secret or something like that. It's like don't talk about it.
They can't tell anyone, because they've built up this reputation as this professional person, and yet there's this kind of part of them that's burning to be heard, burning to be expressed.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in this kind of corporate world where I see so much burnout and so much separation, and what I recognize from a lot of people who have that kind of burnout within the corporate world is because they're playing up to something that they're not, or they're not allowing the part of themselves that keeps knocking on the door, going like, well, you can be that corporate high flying woman, but don't forget about me. Don't forget about the girl that just wants to sit and crochet and listen to podcasts for a little bit. It's that kind of pushing away of themselves. And that was kind of like, I came back, I'm like, I'm just going to show up as me and see, I'm not going to, if anything, what I put on LinkedIn goes out on all of my other platforms. So I don't tailor anything specifically for that platform. That may or may not be right, but that's not who I am. I don't have this corporate face. I have a professional face, but it's not corporate.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, so how have you found, by kind of opening up and allowing those other aspects of yourself to be seen in a place that has that very kind of staid feel about it?
Yeah, I'm not a corporate woman either. I was never like, I'm really like the black wolf of the corporate world or whatever. I was never like that. But what I noticed, because I was into social media marketing for a long time, and as you are, I've been a member on LinkedIn, like, oh my gosh, like I'm too old. Yes. Like 15 plus or whatever years, and it changed so much, and I think the walls are falling down and it's changing. And recently I read an article about it, that there was this I don't know, kind of marketing guru guy. He was talking about like all the posts that are showing your true self on LinkedIn getting more and more popularity. And I went back to my posts that I'm taking these photos during the war, but I always connect everything with business or mindset, so everything goes back to that, obviously. But it can be artistic, it can be me, but it's just from my point of view. And I check the stats for these, like we're talking about like social media marketing. So I check the stats for these particular posts, and they perform the best. Those pictures when I show myself that I'm walking, or I'm not in my perfect whatever suit or blazer or like Chanel or whatever. I don't even own one. And I'm just wearing my favorite Swedish designer Gudrun Sjödén's very cozy and lovely dresses or whatever. And this is me. And these are the posts that they perform the best, and not the ones that not all the time about podcast interviews, about podcast guesting or tips and tricks or whatever, but these posts when you really show your true self. And I think LinkedIn is changing. I know there are still a couple of people out there, they look very corporate, they talk very corporate, and they just, they always talk about like, buy this, buy that, like, buy my service, but this is over. I mean, LinkedIn is changing, and I think all the social media platforms are changing, and people want the real you, the real thing. They don't want these fake things, the masks you're wearing all the time. They want to really see who they do business with, and that's a game changer. Because if you're kind, courageous, if you are help people like genuinely from your heart, they will recognize that, and you can show that face to the world, and you can. Even your business can be more successful if you show yourself, not like, oh, I'm a corporate businesswoman, I do this and that, and all the accolades. And no, it's not about that. It's truly who you are and how you serve people, how you help people.
Yeah. I think like I'm hearing what you're saying, because when I decided to like go back on there, because I'm like, I know that I can help serve women in that space, because having done this podcast, there are many women that come on and have their, have transitioned into a new way of being. Like they offer a service or something that brings them into my space. And many of them have come from corporate careers, 10, 15, 20 years of really being corporate, and then getting to the point of going, and coming back. So I know that they're not the only ones. And like I said, I've been in networking spaces where people kind of find me in the corner and start telling me about their creativity, or questions that they've got about spirituality, and so I'm like, I'm just going to keep showing up, and I'm kind of more comfortable there. I'd go there and I'd see kind of people on my feed. I'm going, I'm just so not that. I'm just so not that. So I'm just going to show, and I had to keep reminding myself to put stuff on there anyway. But I'm like, because I can see how it has a feel about it where everyone's kind of minding their P's and Q's all the time, because of who might be watching and who might be thinking. And I think one of the things of that I have a freedom around is people either like it or they don't. I'm not going to be hauled into HR. I'm not going to have to go through some sort of like business process because I put something on social media. And like, I can't imagine as an adult having to be wary of what I'm saying out of my own mouth and my own opinion, and tempering that because I'm cautious about what that might do for my future. For me, that just sounds like such a prison to live in, and I know that other people do it in their own way, but there's always going to be and your soul will never shut up. I'll give you this. If you're trying to avoid things, your soul will never shut up. The times that I dare take time away from my own creativity and just go solely for things to do for money, then I was so uncomfortable, and I was so up, and it changed my personality. I wasn't a nice person, didn't smile very much. You wouldn't want to be around me. And it wasn't to do with anything other than the fact that I knew that I was lying to myself, and I had to kind of start doing that. So that's why I'm there. I'm like, I'm sure the women that I've spoken to and are not the only ones, of knowing that sometimes where you're at, you want to kind of do something else or something more. It doesn't even have to be that you walk away. If you've got 20 years experience within a field, there's you don't necessarily have to walk away from that, but there's so much experience and wisdom that you have within that that you can add to what it is that your expression is, and it make it so much more. But it's I can see where the fear can come in a lot with that. So it's just seeing and the changes that we're going through now as well, and the way that people work. I think more people realize that working from home was a possibility. Maybe even working for themselves was a possibility as well, and maybe wasn't as difficult as they might have imagined. There's risks, but also
everyone has that.
you have to learn so much about yourself, your mindset, the way that you motivate yourself, the way that you decide that you're going to get stuff done, and there's so many things to learn. I think I've learned way more having to do things myself than relying on just going in and doing just enough not to get sacked, and then making sure that
tell me about it.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of like relying on the regular paycheck, it just didn't work for me, because I always had way too many ideas, and it was hard to pretend that I didn't have those. But yeah, that's one of the things I think is really exciting about the world that we're moving into. And also, let's get back to podcasting, because we didn't really go into that, because like you had that pivot as well in 2020. Like you said, your initial business had to close down because travel kind of was non-existent pretty much, and then went into podcasting. So why is it that you chose podcasting? And just talk about the things that you've seen change within podcasting, the opportunities, and why it's an important platform for people to be involved in. I love it. I've been doing it for a long time, so that's why I want to hear from you.
Yeah, at the pivot. And why podcasting? I had no idea. Like, why podcasting? It was like completely and utterly accidental. And we didn't have anything else. And my husband actually became part of this mentor masterclass community program. We can call it anything. And they learned about like how to run a podcast booking agency. And because there were so many podcasts were, popping up during COVID, and it became so popular. So if you didn't have a podcast, you are not a real person or whatever. And so everyone started a podcast. So yeah, if there are podcasts, so they need podcast booking agencies because they can't do everything alone, and people want to find the right podcast to them for themselves. So that was like a sudden decision. We had to pay the bills. That's the honest truth about it. And and I said, okay, what to do? That was like very low investment. Let's do this course. Completed the course. We created a website during the night. We still have that website, and just which is like we have to change things around, but it's working. And that was it. And we started our own podcast booking agency, and first focused on female entrepreneurs from the e-commerce niche. And it was amazing because we still need more female voices in the e-commerce world, and that's how we started. But then we expanded to different niches, to coaches, to healers, to authors. It's a huge variety of people we work with right now. So that was your first question. What was your second question? Because I can't remember. You asked something.
That's one of my terrible habits I've still not gotten over, is like kind of slamming people with like 2 or 3 questions at the same time.
I have to write them. I forget.
Yeah, like I've kind of forgotten as well. So yeah, why podcasting, and what is it about podcasting, and what do you see as the growth and the future of podcasting? Because like I said to you, when I started mine in 2017, I thought, oh my God, I'm so late. Because I'd been listening to podcasts for so long. And I actually gave a speech last week. So I was doing a bit of research on podcasting. So I had I've got a lot of stats in my head fresh. And that podcasting started around 2003. So like the first ones were kind of coming out. So it's, coming on like 20 odd years old. Like podcast is not a new thing, but I was looking at some of the stats, like the growth spurt, it really kind of went like this exponentially in 2020. If you look at
absolutely.
when people started. And to be honest, initially, like in 2020, I actually really slowed down on this one, because I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Because I've seen a lot of things, and I really slowed down and kind of was really more measured about what I put out on this platform, and then started actually producing a podcast for somebody else, So I was doing like more of their stuff than I was doing mine until I came back to mine again. But yeah, podcasting is such as I was looking like stats, because the stats are fresh in my mind. So there are around about 3 million titles that are active titles. There's probably more that are just sitting on, people do a couple of episodes and then they go, nah, I don't want to do that. But also that it's a multi-billion-dollar business. It's just,
it is, yes.
It's massive. And also another interesting stat as well was, for every one audiobook, there are 6 podcasts.
Yes.
And we thought that there were like many audiobooks. So like, how do you see, the benefits of podcasting and where it's going, especially for yourself as a booking agent? That's kind of the question.
Yeah, the benefits are just amazing. I mean, you're creating evergreen content. It stayed there forever, obviously. Hopefully the host won't delete the podcast from iTunes or wherever it's stored. And it just helps to, build your brand, your authority, and just creating amazing content that you can reshare and repurpose in the future. I mean, that's better than any other marketing strategy I learned about, or online marketing strategy I learned about the past, because you can run an ad on Instagram or Facebook, you spend a lot of money on it, and then it's like poof, up in the air, it's gone. Like you have like 30 seconds to grab the attention. But once you do a podcast interview, you can cut it up, you can use it like in so many different ways. obviously with the permission of the host. And just it's like I'm repurposing content like from 2 years ago, and that I was interviewed as a guest, and it's still relevant. It's still, it's evergreen. So it's amazing how much you can use it for your own advantage, and plus you can tag the host, and it's just a win-win situation for everyone. And I think the future of it, 2020 was like a wild time when it came to podcasting, and everybody was starting that. But what we saw, that if you didn't reach episode 6 or 7, and that was it, then like many podcasts stopped, it like went down.
Right.
Yes. And then when COVID like slowed down and people went back to the live speaking gigs, went back to work, or like, all the kind of different like work arrangements, there are a lot of podcasts stopped because they didn't have time to do that. They weren't sitting home anymore. So podcasting and podcast guesting, like both part, they really require like consistency and persistency. You know that yourself. You're a host, and you have to be there and just have to record and edit and do it, rinse and repeat. So it requires a lot of energy, money, time. And many people just, they think I would love to have a podcast. It's just so easy to do. It's so not. And being a guest, on the other hand, is so much easier because you just prepare yourself and get on a show, tell your story, share your message. So I think that's an amazing opportunity. Where the podcasting goes, I think it goes very strong, still going very strong. Although what I read something about it recently, that although we have like 3 million something podcasts, but I don't know the percentage, and I don't want to say like rubbish, but there's like a huge percentage actually stopped, and they are not like producing more content anymore. But the ones are in the core, and a couple of 100,000, they are still going very, very strong. And the other thing is that there's so many podcasts was getting all these, that I think like 8 million people looking for podcasts or something like that in the world as a guest. So there's a lot of people who, just want to appear and share their message. So this is like a whole new space for creating content. This is not like radio shows or TV shows, because they always you pay them and you can tell anything you want. And or like depends where you are.
Which platform you're on.
Yeah, but money solves a lot of things. So but with podcasts, you just get these guests on and they share amazing stories, and not because they're getting paid or you getting paid. They just want genuinely help other people to cope with something. Like I know a lot of us, they talk about like, mental health or health or the importance of exercise or anything. And it just really helps your life and broaden your horizon and the way you think. And it just changed the media that we are in. It's not TV, it's not radio, it is something else. This is podcasting. This is like it's 20 years old, but it's rebirthed thanks to COVID. And it's just something pretty amazing that we can learn. I learned so much from podcast guesting, and to work with hosts every day. It's just, it's mind-blowing how much you can learn from interviews.
Yeah, I'm me being on the other side as well, it's learning so much about people, learning how to communicate effectively, learning how to ask good questions.
Yes, good questions, exactly. That's important.
Like in itself as well. And then all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot. It's not just I don't just sit here and turn the mic on and record. And you can do that, but I want to create something that feels like a little bit of care has gone into it. So it takes a little bit more time, but even though it doesn't necessarily directly pay me, so I don't directly monetize this. I know people who do, and there's varying different opinions as to what's good and what's not good. But the model that I'm following is the model that I'm following for the time being, because it's like you say with marketing, it's a more evergreen and a more organic, and it's kind of a slow burn. But then after a while, it really starts to really create its own momentum, and you get that core listenership come back as well. And the fact that I've kept going is that I'm in the top 10% of podcasts, because I just keep putting,
which is amazing, which is great. That's an amazing result.
So it create and just going back to creativity and the whole idea of like, I had this idea years ago that I think I can do that. I want to do that. This is what I'm going to do. And I turned it around really quickly. I had the idea in September, and by the November, I was putting it out. And these are, again, talking about just having those creative whispers and then following through, because that creative whisper of, let's do this, let's call it this, let's, do all of the little things that come to create what this has been. It's like every now and again I'll be like, man, like I did that, even when I was getting a lot of flack for like, why are you doing that, no one's paying you. I'm like, you wouldn't understand why I keep doing this. It's not even about the money, but I do get, some of my guests will gift me things, like I'll get books or treatments or there's so many other things that come from it. And then also create a network of people that we might not be like in each other's DMs all the time, but send a message every now and again, support each other on social media just by popping a like or resharing. It's just like little things that you can do to help the independent person, the independent entrepreneur who's putting themselves out there and creating this authentic expression of all of us. That is, I think these are the things that are really going to change the world. If each person goes, this is who I am, this is my message, this is what I want to create, and you create all around it, so for me, it's, there's the podcast, and there's the other one, then there's a book I'm writing, there's coaching, there's the courses, there's the there's the music, and it's just all of these things are me, and then just like sitting back and looking and going, this is just me living my life in 2024 and doing all the things that are available to me. I think like this is just a super exciting time to be someone who follows that creativity, that whisper of your soul, that spirituality. I'm like, why would you not want to do that?
Exactly.
I don't understand why you would want to hold yourself back from expressing yourself in a way that is so possible now with technology. It gives us so much options. It's not to say it isn't the Wild West out there, but if you keep at it, there's so much that can come. And like share like your visions for your creativity and where you want to go, and any last final words from yourself.
I just want to keep going with everything I'm doing, because that's my motto in life, business, personal life, and just keep going and just keep creating and give back to the world, give back to the people and help people, and especially spread the word about how art is therapeutic and it can really help to change your life. And like today I was like reading about how to create like an art journal, and it's just so amazing that you can do things to help your life and help others people's life and to serve them. I mean, that's going ahead, and just keep going, just keep doing things I'm doing right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Can you share where people can find you?
Sure, of course. They can find me on LinkedIn. Yes, we talked about. I'm there all the time. And if you search for my name, Noémi Beres, I am there. And our website for podcast booking agency is podcastconnections, plural.co. You can get in touch with us. And there's also a website for my art, which is Noémi Beres, again, my name.com. And you can find most of my paper collages there. I'm not so good at keeping up with all the collages I'm creating and putting up there, but I will do my best. So yeah, and Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, find me, again, my name. And I'm like a kind of content creator there. And I love sharing amazing content from Instagram. So check it out.
Beautiful, beautiful. Noémi, thank you so much for this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much, Carol. I enjoyed every moment of it.
Thank you so much, Noémi, for sharing with me, and thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. I'm on social media, Carol May Whittick, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and as Casmic, CAZMICK, on Instagram. And if you're enjoying my podcast, I encourage you to leave a review and tell me exactly how my podcasts are helping you. Thanks for listening. Until the next episode, take care. Thank you.